best friends. But Cooper, Sephiroth, and Dr. Wily always smiley, but my thoughts are red just like my eyes be on.
What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG on the YouTube.com down there. We like magic, and I got something special for you today. A lot of you have been asking for it. We've got the first budget deck of the season today, and it's a good one, $40 Hapatra. But not just Hapatra. I figured since this was a budget deck, and we're already in green-black, I might as well play Nest of Scarabs too, so we can have all the little 1/1 dudes. Now we're going to play 3 copies of Hapatra and 4 copies of Nest in the deck. Because Hapatra's legendary, she would be really good in multiples, but she's legendary. And Nest is really good in multiples, so we'll play all 4 copies of that. Because if we have more than one copy, things start getting kind of crazy. Even though they're just 1/1 guys, they're still awesome. They can do damage. You can go super wide, you can jump block, whatever you want to do. 1/1 guys are not terrible a lot of the time. And obviously these 2 cards are like fairly similar, but there's slight differences. Obviously one's a creature, one's an enchantment. Being an enchantment makes Nest a little bit harder to take out than Hapatra, but at the same time it costs 1 more mana and doesn't fuel itself the way Hapatra does. And Hapatra's snakes have death touch, and that's way better than just a vanilla 1/1 insect. The only real caveat to that though is that Hapatra, even if you put like 3 -1/-1 counters on a guy, you only get 1 snake. Cool thing about Nest of Scarabs is if you put like a Channeler Initiate out, you get 3 -1/-1 counters on a creature, you get 3 insects. That's pretty awesome. Well, if we're going to get value out of these 2 cards and build a whole deck around them, in fact, then we're going to have to play a bunch of stuff that puts -1/-1 counters on creatures. It seems like that follows. That's top-down deck design at its finest. So what we're going to do is play all the best stuff that puts -1/-1 counters on creatures, starting with 3 copies of Archfiend and Ifnir and 4 copies of Ruthless Sniper, which is like a little baby Archfiend. Archfiend of Ifnir is obviously pretty rad. Gotta play it in the deck. It's 5 mana though. So I think we can get away with just playing the 3 copies of it and be fine. But this is obviously our finisher a lot of the time, aside from an army of snakes or insects. This can just fly over, gives the deck some much needed flying. That's pretty important. It's just a huge power dude, and it just leads to one-sided wraths, which is the best part of the card, obviously. And Ruthless Sniper may not hit all of our opponent's creatures, but it is important that we play a 1-drop or 2 in the deck so that we can, get a good turn sequence in with Hapatra. It's great to get a Ruthless Sniper turn 1, Hapatra turn 2. That sets you up to do a lot of pretty nasty stuff, so that's cool. Ruthless Sniper synergizes very well on turn 1 with the turn 2 Hapatra. And, it's got other tricks in the deck. We'll talk about that as we go through, but Ruthless Sniper is surprisingly good for me, so far at least. It's just kind of an afterthought. I was like, oh, that'd be a good 1-drop, but it's actually awesome. It's actually really awesome and has a lot of good tricks. Remember how I said if we're going to play Hapatra and Nest, we have to play some stuff that puts -1/-1 counters on creatures? Sounds familiar? I said it a second ago. Well, if we're going to play Archfiend of Ifnir and Ruthless Sniper, we also have to play stuff that lets us cycle or discard. So with that in mind, let's play the 2 best cards that I think will do that in these colors, and that is Noose Constrictor, definitely, and Key to the City, which is super important for the deck. Key to the City does literally everything that the deck wants to do. It discards cards, and it gets Hapatra 3 for combat damage. Just gotta do that. And you can pay any mana for it. That's pretty sweet sometimes in this budget deck that doesn't have a fully developed mana base. So this Key to the City is so good. And you can slap it on an Archfiend or something to make sure that it gets 3 for combat damage. Just, yes. Key to the City, all 4 copies. You're going to be looking for it all the time. As far as Noose Constrictor goes, it's just awesome with Archfiend of Ifnir and even Ruthless Sniper. Honestly, turn 1 Ruthless Sniper into turn 2 Noose Constrictor, sets you up to do some crazy stuff as early as turn 3. You don't even have to play any other cards besides a land on turn 3, and then suddenly you can discard a couple of cards and kill 1 or 2 of their guys and just swing in for 5 or 7 even. It's not bad a turn sequence at all. Just turn 1 Sniper, turn 2 Noose Constrictor. But obviously Noose Constrictor is insane with Archfiend too. You drop your Archfiend with your Noose Constrictor out, and suddenly you just wrath their entire board. You discard 3 or 4 cards, and yeah, you lost some cards, but now you got a huge flying dude and a snake that you can pump. It's great. Not to mention, by the way, that's not even counting the whole point of making the deck. If you've got a Hapatra or a Nest of Scarabs out, and you discard all those cards with Noose Constrictor, and you just wrath your opponent's board, not only are you getting rid of everything on the other side of the board, but you're filling your board with all these guys. We're going to play 3 Channeler Initiate in the deck, and it's $250, so if we had the budget, we might play all 4. It puts us a little bit above $40 to play 4 copies of Initiate, but it is really good in the deck, and you could play all 4 if you wanted to do that. It not only helps us get to Archfiend of Ifnir a little bit faster, Crocodile the Crossing on turn 3 ain't half bad either, and, this also puts 3 -1/-1 counters on one of our guys, usually Channel or Initiate itself. And with the Nest of Scarabs out, that means you get 3 insects. That's great. Even if you just have a Hapatra out, you still get a Death Touch Snake. That's also decent. Not to mention that you can also just put the -1/-1 counters on a 1-drop, for instance, and just have a 3/4 for 2 mana. That's also okay. And there's other ways to put -1/-1 counters on it later if you need the mana or something. So a lot of flexibility on Channel or Initiate. A lot of synergy in this deck too, and those are the things we're looking for. I'm going to play at least 3 copies. To finish off the creatures in the deck, I'm going to play 2 copies of Festering Zombie and 2 copies of Crocodile the Crossing on sort of opposite ends of the curve here. But the cards work really well together. You know, if you got a zombie out, you play your Crocodile, you can essentially put a -1/-1 counter on one of your opponent's guys. In that trade, that's nice. And you get a 4 power or 4 mana 5 power guy. That's a pretty sweet deal right there. Crocodile the Crossing does a pretty good impression of Fleetwheel Cruiser. You know, 4 mana 5 power dude with haste. It's awesome. And in this deck, you can come down as early as turn 3 off a Channel or Initiate, which is actually a pretty sweet turn sequence. Turn 2 Initiate, and then turn 3 you'll tap your Initiate, remove a -1/-1 counter from it, play your Croc, and then put a -1/-1 counter right back on Initiate so you can keep tapping for mana for longer. That's cool. And again, you get a 3rd turn 5 power guy with haste that can mess up a lot of boards. Definitely. That's a really, really good tempo play. So that's awesome. And we've got a lot of plays in this deck. This also works with like, Ruthless Sniper. You know, you can just put a -1/-1 counter on Sniper and it lives to keep doing stuff. And if you got an extra mana, you can again funnel that into a -1/-1 counter on one of your opponent's creatures. That's super sweet. And the curve exists in this deck, by the way, to go like, for instance, you can go Festering Zombie on turn 1, Hapatra turn 2, Nest of Scarabs turn 3, Crocodile the Crossing turn 4. If you pull that off, then you'll get a -1/-1 counter on one of your opponent's creatures. You'll get a 4 mana 5 power dude with haste, and you'll get 2 snakes and 2 insects. That's pretty crazy because remember, there were 2 -1/-1 counters in this interaction. But even if you don't play a Nest or Hapatra in those like intermittent turns there, the interaction is still good, and Crocodile is very, very good even just by itself. Now the rest of the deck is all removal, starting with 2 copies of Dissenter's Deliverance here. I think it's definitely okay to play this in the main deck, especially in this deck. You know, not only will we very often run across things like Heart of Kirin, Scrapheap Scrounger, Dynavolt Tower, Aetherworks Marvel, there's a million things that Dissenter's Deliverance can just kill. We don't have to worry about, and that's nice to have in the main deck. But even if we're not worried about artifacts, then we can just cycle it, draw a card, and any of our like Archfiends or Ruthless Snipers can put counters on our opponent's creatures in that case. So it's really nice to cycle a Dissenter's Deliverance with an Archfiend out and put -1/-1 counters on all of our opponent's dudes and draw a card. All this costs 1 mana. That's really, really nice. We're going to play 3 copies of Sinister Concoction in the deck, and I've been putting it in a couple of decks lately. It was in Esper Zombies, and I liked it in that deck, and I like it in this deck too, you know? In this deck, we're playing things like Archfiend and Ruthless Sniper that make us have to discard cards to get -1/-1 counters to then fuel Hapatra and Nest and stuff. So this is just something else that makes us discard cards, and it's nice because if you have an Archfiend out, you can basically target one of your opponent's dudes, kill that guy outright, and then put a -1/-1 counter on any other dudes they have remaining. That's pretty sweet. No qualms with that. It also stops cat combo, which is something you got to worry about because it didn't ban anything. I'm recording this the same day they didn't ban anything, so I'm still a little salty about that. But, you know, we got to have stuff. If you're taking this up to F&M or whatever, you got to have stuff just in case somebody's packing cats. And to finish off the main deck, we're going to play 2 copies of Splendid Agony and 2 copies of Grasp of Darkness. Just for newer players, note that Grasp of Darkness does not put counters on a creature. It just gives them -4/-4. So you won't get any synergy off of Hapatra or Nest of Scarabs. But I think it's important to play it for the same reason I like playing Sinister Concoction. It breaks up cat combo. Kills Felidar Guardian instant speed. So I want to play a couple of copies of Grasp. But if you're in a casual format, you don't see cat combo often, or maybe your F&M has banned cat combo. I saw that in the comments of my video earlier today. A lot of people are saying that they just have an unspoken or even spoken sometimes agreement to not play 4-color Saheeli or Mardu vehicles at their F&Ms. Or some people are just poor. You know, whole LGSs sometimes don't contain Mardu vehicles or Saheeli combo because they're just expensive decks and nobody can afford that junk. So, you know, if you're playing in a format like that, then feel free to go whole hog on the Splendid Agony and just do 4 copies and not have to play Grasp. But if you're coming up against Saheeli combo a lot, then definitely play Grasp, and we'll also play 2 more copies on the board. It's just that good. You know, we got to play things that break up that combo. But Splendid Agony, outside of the vacuum of having to break up Saheeli, which it doesn't do, is a good card, as a matter of fact. fact. You can, you know, split it among some of your creatures if you need counters for Channel or Initiate or whatever you're trying to do. You can do that, but mostly you'll just put 2 counters on your opponent's creatures. And it's also nice that, like, you know, it splits them up if you need that to happen. It's instant speed, so it's a combat trick too. Just a lot of cool things that this does for you. Whether they're blocking one of your guys and they didn't expect this, or maybe you're blocking one of their guys and they didn't expect this. It's just nice that it's a combat trick. And obviously, it synergizes with the 2 key spells in the deck. So we'll play a couple of copies at least. Here are the lands. We're going to play 22 right here, and I do think it's important to play a couple of Blooming Marsh if you can afford it, and you definitely up it to the playset if you can. And if you can afford Hissing Quagmire, you probably do that too. We're not incredibly inconsistent. You know, we've got a card like Key to the City, which we can pay any mana for. We've got Channeler Initiate, which allows us to generate mana that way too. You know, it's just, we've got lots of stuff. It's not a big deal, but I do want to shore up this mana base as much as possible, and that would require adding some duels. Here's your sideboard right here. We'll finish up the playset of Sinister Concoction against Cat Combo. You'll hear me say against Cat Combo a lot here. We're going to play 2 Descender's Deliverance against Mardu vehicles, mostly. But other things like Dynavolt Tower, we'll see that. We're going to play 2 copies of Grasp against Cat Combo, mostly. But also Mardu vehicles, because we've got to kill Heart of Kieran. We got 4 Trespassers Cursed against Cat Combo. We got 4 Manglehorn against Cat Combo and sometimes Mardu vehicles. And we got 2 Prowling Serpapard, which is against Control, which is something that you see, I've seen pop up in testing at least. I'm going to give you a sideboard guide here against cats because I gave you a bunch of cards to side in against cats. I might as well tell you what to take out here. We're going to side in all of those cards. We're going to side in a Sinister Concoction, 4 Trespassers Curse, 2 Grasp of Darkness, and 4 Manglehorn against the stupid cat lady. And we're going to take out 2 Festering Zombie and 4 Ruthless Sniper. We won't need these 1-drops as much. And we won't need to be doing -1/-1 counter stuff near as much either in game 2. We'll also take out the 2 Splendid Agony to make room for the Grasp of Darkness. A Channeler Initiate, not as important in the matchup. Nest of Scarabs also can go down to 3. That's fine. And then Archfiend of Ifnir will also take down a copy because 5-drops aren't generally that good against this deck. Here are your power rankings right here. Final score of 61, which is not bad. You know, low 60s is pretty good for a deck that's only like $40 on TCG Player. It's actually a little bit less than $40. It's like $38.60, I think is what my cart was when I checked out at least. So that's not a bad price for a deck that's got a lot of good synergy. It can just like one-sided wrath the opponent's board. It's got all these little like 2 and 3 card combos, and like Noose Constrictor plus Archfiend is good enough by itself. But again, you throw in a Hapatra or a Nest, things start getting pretty crazy, especially considering that like each of those is a separate activation. So like you'll get a bunch of snakes off of Hapatra, you know. It's just easy to go wide in this deck while simultaneously crippling your opponent's guys, which is a pretty powerful thing to be able to do. This is a very fun deck once it does get set up, you know, and it's got a lot of really good turn sequences. I've already told you, you know, Festering Zombie, Hapatra, Nest of Scarabs, Archfiend is pretty nice, but turn sequences involving Sniper or Noose Constrictor, Nest of Scarabs, Hapatra, Archfiend of Ifnir, Key to the City, there's just like so many different things you can mix up and sort of freestyle in the first 5 turns that there are a lot of incredible turn sequences. The deck doesn't look like much, but nearly any 3 or 4 cards can be combined to do something fairly special. And just for the record, before I get out of here, just a couple of pertinent numbers to the deck here. We need things that create -1/-1 counters to get synergy off of Hapatra and Nest of Scarabs. There are 19 of those things in the deck, Hapatra included, by the way. And for a couple of those things, Archfiend and Ruthless Sniper, for instance, we need to be able to discard or cycle cards. And there's a total of 13 cards that do that, between Key to the City, Noose Constrictor, and a couple other things, Descender's Deliverance, for instance. So we've got plenty of ways to do all the things that the deck needs to do. This is a numbers game because we've got a couple of different synergies we have to enable that feed into each other. So it's important to get those numbers right. The last thing I'll say about this deck is that I didn't play Exemplar of Strength, you may have noticed, and it seems like it'd be pretty good in the deck. Definitely, it does seem that way, but in the end I decided to opt for Descender's Deliverance and 2 copies of Grasp so that we could have format answers instead of Exemplar. But I'm tapped out for now. That's pretty much all I got to say about the Hapatra deck. Let me know how you felt about it down there in the comments. You know, is this the right construction for it, or did we leave some stuff out? I know that some people are going to want to play like Defiant Great Maw and even the Camel, you know, but I'm just not. I don't think that those are great in this deck. I think they cost an awful lot of mana for what they do. And even like the Gold Beetle, that thing, you know, I don't think that that'd be great in the deck either. They're just all incredibly expensive. And I want to get as much value out of everything everything as I possibly can and play some lower cost cards so that we can actually play this game and get set up as quickly as possible. So there's some stuff I didn't play, but it's mostly, I think, lower powered stuff. But let me know if I missed anything glaring and obviously extremely powerful. Because I don't know, I kind of have a feeling that I did. But anyway, the deck has been doing really good in testing for me, especially for a budget deck. So I'm pretty happy with where we landed here. But let me know how you felt about it, because that is important to me. And you can always like the video if you enjoyed the video. Sub if you're new. Make sure you do that. Hit the bell thingy for the notifications so you get all the Amonkhet deck techs. And you can also follow me on Twitter, SBMTGDev, right there. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I've gotten a lot of requests for a lot of different things, but I'm always interested in what you guys want to see, and I've got my own thing that I'm brewing up for next time, but that might be a couple of days from now. I'm thinking, what is it, as I upload this Tuesday morning, so probably Thursday morning when I get that up. So in the meantime, let me know what you want to see, and I'll get right on that. I'm Deb from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.